started right away. We have a massive group here, so please do get your Q&A questions in early. We've got half an hour to chat to you through some slides, and then we'll get on to your questions. Welcome if this is your first time to a Live Well Live webinar all about holistic weight loss. Welcome if it is your 100th time to a Live Well Live webinar. You're so welcome. My name is Dr. Samantha Wellapilly. I am a GP. I'm also part of the lifestyle medicine team here at Boots Online Doctor, and I'm really keen on supporting a holistic weight loss journey, a health journey that leads you to better health and a sustained weight loss for your sustained good health. And I'm joined today by my colleague Ruth, who's going to say hi also.
Hi everyone, very warm welcome to everyone joining us today, as Sam's already said. I'm Ruth Taylor, I'm a nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor, also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. And really, like Sam, absolutely love the opportunity to talk to you about what you can do on your health journeys, on your weight loss journeys to really support this to be your sort of most successful weight loss journey ever. We want this to be the journey that lasts, really and truly. So we're here sort of sharing what the evidence is telling us in the research, what we know from working with people ourselves, and we're both part of the Boots Online Doctor Service. We're joined today by a colleague Raman, who's here to share any links and to also help answer any questions in the chat boxes. So please do ask your questions in the Q&A box. We are now using an upvoting system in the Q&A box. So Raman, if you'll share the information about that with everyone, that would be great. But basically, because the number of attendees is quite large, we are very unlikely to be able to answer every question. So we want to be realistic about this. We will choose the questions that you upvote. So you get to choose which questions really you want to hear us talking about. We will share our knowledge as widely as we possibly can. If you have a medically orientated question, which is about your personal health, then we will probably redirect you if it's not appropriate to answer in a group setting. So we'll redirect you to the most appropriate people to support you. We want you to come away from here sort of really feeling supported and like you're getting the answers you need. We also have a feedback poll, which we'll send with you. We have polls that we'll share with you during the webinar, which really is just about finding out from you what's going on for you, where you are on your weight loss journey. And really, they're completely anonymous. We only ask so that we've got a sense of perspective and really to bring your attention to maybe what's going on for you. Do say hello in the chat box and we'll get cracking. So let's start
Yeah.
off with a poll. And see what you're thinking about this whole metabolism story. We'd love to hear from you. So, Raman, if you can share poll number one, that would be great. And how did you get on over the last week? We talked a lot about getting the most from using GLP-1s. And we know a lot of people who come to our webinars are currently or have in the past taken GLP-1s. So, did you have any insights or any learnings about yourself? We'd love to hear.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do see that lots of people have filled in the weather. Cloudy, rain, most of the south of the UK, it looks like. Um, but yeah, let us know about any positive changes you've made over the last week that have impacted you. Also, just to bear in mind, these webinars are not just for people using weight loss injections. They can be for anyone. The information we share here is about holistic weight loss, wherever you are on your journey, whether you're just starting out on a weight loss journey with or without medication, if you're in the middle, if you've reached your goal and you're looking to maintain a healthier weight, then we're here for you. So please do ask your questions wherever you are on that stage of your journey, and we're going to actually find out from you where people are on their journey. We have a big group here, as we've said. But we've got people here sharing £6 lost in the first week. Brilliant. Cloudy and cold in Glasgow. Yes. Okay. Weather is changeable all over the UK. Maybe we're lucky here in Brighton, have a bit of blue sky. Someone's on their first jab. Okay, let's move on. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And wherever you are in your journey, 25 kilos lost in a year, but that's fantastic.
Absolutely
So
brilliant. Well done.
well done. Oh, please do try and share your comments with everyone so that your comments go to everyone so we can all learn from each other. That's really helpful.
Should be
Yeah.
able to make that an option on the chat. And please, any specific questions, please pop those into the Q&A box. You'll find that on the bottom of your screen. So please do try and put questions, comments in the chat box, questions in the Q&A box. I think that is the
Absolutely.
way we're going to go for it. And so
Yeah.
let's have a quick look at this poll. I can see Sam, don't know if you want to talk this through. So lots of
Yeah.
in
What have we got? We've got okay. So the question is, what do you currently believe is the biggest imp has the biggest impact on your metabolism? Movement, and hormones and age seems to be the big ones. Some people don't know, and some of us believe it's to do with how much we're eating. So, okay.
okay.
So we're going to hopefully by the end of this presentation, you will know, and you'll have a good idea of where you sit in terms of metabolism. So let's talk about metabolism. What is it? What on earth is it? I know we talk a lot about it's such an important part of a weight loss journey to know where we are with our metabolism and to kind of make friends with it in a sense. And Ruth, you're going to talk on this slide. Go for it.
Yeah, well, we're just going to do a quick introduction, really just start with a soft touch about what metabolism is. So it's really helpful for us to be thinking more about just what does this word mean. I think we want to put the meat on the bones for you as much as we possibly can. So metabolism is really how your body converts the food that you're eating into the energy that your body uses. So all of the tissues in your body need energy to function. Some of them need more than others. Some parts of metabolism, interestingly, are completely outside of our control. So those would relate to our age, our genetics, and our hormones. Hormones, interesting one. Can we control them to a degree? Maybe not fully. We can talk about that a little bit more if that's of relevance. But one factor that we can influence is our muscle mass. So we know that muscle mass is the most metabolically active tissue. So this is why we want to talk about this today. We know if you've been somebody who's had a history of weight on, weight off, yo-yo dieting, you've lost weight and regained it repeatedly, that can have quite an impact on your overall metabolism. It can slow your metabolism down. And that's mainly due to the impact that that process has on your body composition. If you're struggling to lose weight, it might be because you have actually reached a point where you have a lower metabolism. It may be a combination of those factors. It could be your age, it could be the genetics, it could be that you've had that history of yo-yo dieting. The great news is, though, that you can positively influence your metabolism. So, this is why it's such an important subject. It's not something that's set that has to stay where it is. If you feel that your metabolism is perhaps slowing you down or is working against you, we want to really help you understand there is lots you can do. It's not an overnight fix, but we're going to talk that through. And for people who are in that maintenance phase, this is just as important because your metabolism is one of the things that's going to help you stay where you are in terms of your success or weight loss journey. So we really want this to be relevant to everyone.
Yeah. Raman, could we launch the poll just to find out where people are on their journey, if they're at the beginning, middle, or in a maintenance space? That would be really helpful. Thank you. So we can tailor the advice. So this slide is all about the effect of rapid or repeated weight loss. And we know that this pattern is so common, and I will definitely put my hand up to this one as well. The sort of weight off regain. It's kind of a pattern that many of us will be familiar with. Okay, but this is what we need to get around our heads around, because I think a lot of us maybe not be aware of what happens when we are on this kind of cycle. Um, Weight loss itself can reduce our metabolic rates. Our metabolism can slow as our body adapts to a lower energy intake. So as we start to eat less and we approach our food differently, our metabolic rate can slow. Rapid weight loss may increase loss of muscle tissue as well as fat. And as Ruth said very clearly, our muscle tissue is that very metabolically active tissue, the most metabolically active tissue in our body. And what that means is even when we're at rest and our muscles aren't really doing an awful lot watching Netflix, our muscle tissue is burning calories, is burning energy, okay, and using energy, all right, even when it's resting. All right. So we don't want to lose our muscle tissue. Okay. I think hopefully that is pretty intuitive to all of us. We want to lose the fat tissue. We don't want to lose the muscle. Unfortunately, when we lose weight rapidly, we tend to lose muscle tissue as well. All right. So, if especially so, that's why we talk about crash diets or fad diets that are very, very low calorie, and we can, maybe for whatever reason we've been advised to do this in the past. This really is not the thinking now. We really want to look at that slow and steady, gradual weight loss. We're looking at an average weight loss that we're aiming for on meds, off meds of 1 to 2 pounds a week. Okay, so we really want to keep an eye on it as much as we can on average, because we want to maintain our muscles. All right. Um, so repeated weight loss, again, that yo-yo dieting pattern can influence hunger hormones, appetite, and energy balance. So we want to think of our weight loss journey, nothing being linear. Okay, so that's kind of what this graph is telling us, that nothing is ever a straight line. When we're going through a big transformation like a health journey like weight loss, we're really looking at some days being more challenging than others, some days being, really plain sailing to stick to what we've set ourselves. But some days we go off piste a bit. Sometimes we can be great. We can be really well within the parameters we've set ourselves, but our weight just isn't changing because our body isn't a machine. Okay, we have all sorts of patterns, all sorts of mechanisms within the body. The body tends to want to maintain homeostasis, which is balance, which is basically everything being equal. So when there are big shifts in perhaps the way that our food choices, the way we're moving our body, the body takes a little while to adapt, to kind of keep that, it's wanting to keep that equilibrium, that homeostasis. So it takes a little bit of time for our body to get used to a a longer term change. So maybe the way that we build our plate, maybe the way that we move our bodies, maybe the way that we're sleeping. It takes a little while for those changes to show up in our system, if you like. So please don't lose heart if you feel that, sometimes the scales just aren't moving, but I'm doing everything right. Think about those other softer signs that Ruth and I often talk about. Maybe we have a better mood. Maybe we have more energy. Maybe our clothes fit differently. Maybe things are a bit looser on the body and the maybe your waist circumference or the arm circumference or thigh circumference is changing, but the numbers on the scales just aren't budging. But actually, there are changes going on in the body. So just bear in mind that not everything, you know, the scales don't represent every change that is going on in your system. I'll just quickly say about this poll. Okay, so quite a lot of just people just starting out. Welcome, welcome. Midway through is the majority. Welcome also, and there's a good number of us also maintaining. So well done, and thank you for joining us. But we're going to move on to the next slide and get to your questions as soon as we can. But do think about what we're saying and think about your questions can be anything to do with weight loss, but if they're specifically about metabolism, we're really keen to cover those.
Okay, so this slide is really all about what are the factors that affect or slow down your metabolism. We know already, we've heard already that things like age, hormones, genetics, being maybe menopausal and in those hormonal shifts can be quite challenging for our metabolism. But there are other many lifestyle factors that can play a role. So we want to be thinking about these factors and we want you to be thinking, okay, is there anything in this list that is relevant to me? It doesn't matter about anyone else that's here, it's about you. So let's think about what those factors are. So building muscle mass and having a healthy muscle mass is really important. Being inactive by and large, following a sort of very sedentary lifestyle, is going to perhaps make that muscle mass less prominent. So, really important to be thinking about. If you're somebody who struggles to eat enough protein or hasn't really put any attention on how much protein to eat, we know that protein is one of the factors that can really support a healthy metabolism. And we generally recommend that you follow our core meal plan, which we can share the link to because we know we have some new people here. So, Raman, if you could share that. And also the protein information in foods and also the vegan diet sheet would be useful to share too. So have a look at those and see what you can pick up in terms of the protein that would be really easy for you to add in. We recommend as a starting point that you think about having something like 1 gram of protein per kilogram of your current body weight. So that is your starting point. If you're somebody who is on a protein restriction for any sort of underlying health issues, obviously you need to pay more attention to that. But generally, for most people, that 1 gram per kilogram is a safe place to start. We also know if you're somebody who's had a history of maybe, or that currently you're under eating routinely, that potentially could slow your metabolism down. That's completely different to doing a focused fasting approach, but we're talking about long term, every day, not eating enough calories. If you're not eating enough calories every day, your body is going to go into starvation mode and it's going to find it very difficult to have a very positive metabolism. We also know sleep is a real factor in how our metabolism works for us. So, actually, if you're struggling with sleep, come along to our sleep webinar or watch the replay. And again, stress will have quite an impact on your hormones and have an impact on your ability to have a healthy metabolism and to burn fat. So, really think about all of these factors. Start thinking, okay, this feels a bit overwhelming. We know this is a long list. Please ignore any of those factors that you can't deal with. We always talk, don't we, Sam, about choosing the low-hanging fruit. So choose, that means choose something on this list that we're sharing with you today that is relevant to you and that you can manage to make some changes with. So we also need to think about what we're drinking. So dehydration we know can really affect our metabolism. Alcohol intake, again, not such good news. And also thinking about our gut health. So lots of things. And also interestingly, from my perspective, nutrient deficiency. So there's lots of factors that are in your control, and that's exciting. So many of those factors are things you can do something about. That means you can modify them, you can change one at a time, and all of those collectively can have quite a profound effect on how your metabolism works for you. We know that ongoing restriction can really encourage our bodies to conserve our energy, and that basically means we're going to burn fewer calories when we're at rest, and we're going to find it harder to lose weight. So these are really important things for us all to be thinking about. So you also need to be thinking, okay, movement. What does that movement mean? How do I build that muscle mass? We're going to go into this in more detail. So I'm not going to repeat this, but we can pick up on any questions. I think these are all really, really important points, aren't they, Sam? So it's sort of like putting those jigsaw puzzles together.
Yeah. And as you said, like what's relevant to you as an individual on this journey? What resonated from the list that Ruth has been talking about? Which one do you think might be a simple one to address for you?
Okay.
So we're going to talk a bit about activity to boost metabolism and weight loss. So of course, we know there are many benefits to regular activity, and we know that there's a big group of you here. We all have different levels of mobility and ability. So please take this advice within, what you are able to do. Um, we know that many of you are here to continue this weight loss journey. Lots of you here also want to maintain the weight that you've lost and maintain a healthier weight. One of the key reasons that movement matters is because muscle tissue is metabolically active, as we've said. So we want to maintain or increase that muscle mass. And we want to maintain the weight loss that we are striving for long term. Okay. We also know that increased activity or regular activity improves our sleep quality and it improves our mood because we release lots of happy hormones when we exercise. It's also, you know, it might be that some of us have not traditionally been particularly active or sporty in our lives, or maybe we were when we were much younger, but it is really something that we need to address at this stage. We are making a commitment to ourselves to improve our health by losing weight and really improve those so we're seeing more and more that we're doing these webinars that there are lots of pieces of the puzzle that fit together. So activity is a big part of the puzzle and it's a really big part in the maintenance phase. So all of us, wherever we are at the beginning or the middle, or we've reached our goal weight, we really want to have an eye on this is a long-term journey. I want to be healthier. I want to be at my healthier weight for as long as I can. Building muscle mass and building activity into our routine and sort of moving away from that sedentary lifestyle. I know that I definitely have a job where I sit at a computer most of the day, so I am very conscious of getting up every hour, moving my body. Whenever I have a little bit of a break, I make sure I move. So these are things that we have to bring into our consciousness so that they become a habit. So again, it's training ourselves, bringing in these habits because we know muscle burns energy at rest much more than fat tissue. And this means so when we build our muscle, we have more of that glorious muscle tissue burning calories whilst we are resting. Okay. But we need to put in a bit of effort to build it. But also, we put in a bit of effort, but we want to really make sure that there is, that this doesn't feel too onerous or intimidating, that we really want to um, do activities that we enjoy. So if we move on to the next slide, please, we want to think about what counts as activity, um, this is an individual journey. We're not talking about competing with each other. It doesn't, we want to really think about things that we enjoy. So we don't want to necessarily, the gym is not for everyone. Not everyone enjoys going to the gym or feels comfortable going to a gym. We want to think about things that we enjoy. Maybe it's dancing. Maybe it's doing exercise videos at home. There's plenty on YouTube. Movement through the day really matters. So getting up every hour if you have a sedentary job and maybe just, going for a walk, maybe standing or doing something like marching on the spot while the kettle boils, like bringing in bits of movement where you can. Okay. And sometimes this is called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So it's actually the movement we do outside of formal exercise. So actually it's the sort of walking up and down the stairs or doing the hoovering or the housework or hanging out the laundry or, you know, emptying the dishwasher, the things that we do that are actually active all day long, but we don't think of as exercise. It's keeping moving, keeping active through the day. So not necessarily joining a tennis club and the 2 hours of tennis I do every week. That's brilliant. But think about the movement you do throughout your day so that, you're not spending large portions of your day sat down. That's what we want to try and avoid if we can. And again, we're talking about, we're doing what we can within the limits of each of our individual mobility and fitness. Okay. So we want to think about movement, the movement that we do outside of formal exercise. So that's walking here and there, climbing stairs, housework, gardening, standing more, maybe investing in a standing desk if you're a desk worker like Ruth and I, playing with our pets, playing with our kids, moving around at work. Okay, it's this kind of activity that really adds up and keeps everything flowing in the day. Okay. For some, it might mean chair exercises, arm weights, stretching, walking to the end of the road, or simply standing up more often during the day as we can. Okay. It all counts. All right. And if you're living with pain or fatigue, arthritis, mobility difficulties, the goal is not perfection here. The goal is to gently work within the limits of your own body and ask, what can I add in safely and consistently? And sometimes even very small increases in movement can help to improve strength, stability, support metabolism, reduce stiffness, improve confidence, and in some cases can even help reduce pain over time. Okay. Food, hydration, sleep, and inflammation also play a role in how we feel physically. Um, and remember, we can do things incrementally. We don't have to do everything 100% straight away. We can slowly build. It's step by step that we build our activity and our level of movement.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Some people are saying the activity link we've shared isn't working. We will share it when we send out the slides or the
I would just
recording.
say it is working for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think
it
it
might
depends
be a
on
case
people's
of
browsers.
clearing a cache in your
Yeah, yeah.
browser.
We have checked it. We know it is working, but we know some people are still struggling.
We'll
So
send it again, so don't worry.
absolutely. So yeah, well, I think we've labored this point quite a lot. So it's just really interesting to think actually that in two bodies that weigh the same amount, actually one can be much more metabolically active perhaps than another. And this is all to do with your body composition and what's going on for you. So obviously what we're keen for you to understand is the more muscle mass you preserve, the more energy your body will naturally use throughout the day. And this becomes really important in weight loss and in weight loss maintenance. So weight loss on its own without movement or without a really adequate protein intake, what will happen is we're much more likely to use muscle or to lose, sorry, I think I said use, but lose muscle as well as fat. So if we lose that muscle, then our muscle body composition reduces. And so we have a higher fat mass, a lower muscle mass. And that makes that whole maintenance of weight loss really more challenging. So this is really important concept for us to be thinking about. So the way that we lose weight becomes really important. Is not just the goal isn't weight loss, the goal is weight loss the right way and actually making sure that we are utilizing all of the strategies that we're talking about today to support the loss of fat mass, the maintenance of muscle mass. If you're not doing that, there is a huge risk that you'll be back in that yo-yo diet scenario that we know lots of people have been in and potentially can get back into again. So this puts really big importance for building those muscles. And as Sam said, this isn't a competition. We all start from where we are. It is about protecting your muscle mass, supporting your metabolism for the long term. And it doesn't mean heavy gym workouts. You could be using things like resistance bands at home. You could be doing chair exercises. You know, if you're somebody who's struggling with pain in your lower body, then use your upper body. It is about starting, as Sam was saying, for everyone where it is. And it's about losing fat and protecting muscle. This is so super important, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how much activity? So this is quite commonly asked questions. So the general recommendation from the NHS is around 150 minutes of moderate movement per week, alongside strength or resistance exercise at least twice weekly. It doesn't need to mean gym sessions. This could mean using soup cans as weights for your arms. It could be maybe investing in they're not very expensive, a weighted vest. If you walk the dog, maybe a not very heavy weighted vest to start with, maybe 2 kilos or something like that if you can do so if you walk the dog. So I walk the dog and I wear a weighted vest as I walk to add a bit of resistance as I walk. Um, don't let it feel overwhelming. Start where you are. We all have are very individual in where we are and what we're able to do. So start where you are and just go gently with yourself because we don't want to overwhelm ourselves and so much so that we sort of chuck it all away. Slowly, slowly. Okay, everything gradually and making these changes. And what I really recommend is doing something you enjoy. So find something you enjoy, and it may be something completely new. Maybe you're doing something with a friend. I find it useful when I is having a friend keeping me accountable, going to a class together or, having a bit of chat, having a bit of a laugh at the same time makes it feel less like, oh, I'm going to do something that I really don't particularly enjoy. It's about finding something you like doing. Music is also something that's really helpful. Walking counts. So whether you have headphones on, whether you have some music on in the kitchen and you have a dance, you move your body, whether you're at the gym and you're enjoying the music that is being played over the speakers, or whether, music can really help you to enjoy an activity more. Um, Remember again, movement is not a competition. The goal is not perfection, it's progress and consistency. And the best kind of movement is the one that you can do consistently. So make it part of your routine. And we talked about NEAT, sort of the things that we don't really class as exercise. Maybe that is getting off the bus a stop earlier so you have a bit of a longer walk, or parking the car a bit further away from the supermarket doors so that you have a longer walk there and back. So, it's little things like that which can just become part of your routine, so you don't have to think about them. And actually, you're increasing that sort of non-exercise movement during the day.
Yeah, and those sort of things as well fit in with life because for many people, life can be quite overwhelming and busy, can't it? So thinking about fitting in even half an hour can feel too much, whereas an extra 3 minutes by getting off a stop earlier can feel doable, can't it? Or achievable.
Yeah,
I thought it would
absolutely.
be really helpful to think about what foods might be helpful. We've talked already a lot about protein, so we know that protein helps to support and preserve muscle mass. It also helps to improve fullness and satiety, and it burns more effectively. So it really helps us in terms of utilizing calories in the processing of that food. Protein is really up there. It uses more calories to digest and assimilate protein or get that absorption of protein in our bodies compared to foods that are high in fat or carbohydrates. And so that's a really important factor. But we also have mentioned hydration. We know that hydration is also really important in metabolic health. We know that mild dehydration can really affect our energy levels, also can really have an impact on appetite regulation and how our metabolism works. So it's really important to stay hydrated both for weight loss and weight maintenance. And there are some sort of like recommendations that we think in terms of somewhere around 28 milliliters per kilogram of body weight in terms of how much hydration we need. But don't forget, we'll get 500 mils approximately to 1,000 mils from the food that we eat if we're eating those vegetables. They will soups, they will bring hydration with them. So don't forget your food can also support that hydration, but it is something that we really need to think about. And we also would suggest that you look at your urine and use that as a barometer for whether you're hydrated enough. You want your urine to be a pale straw colour. So for most people, unless you're on some sort of fluid restriction, really think about making sure you're drinking enough. And there's some really interesting research that says drinking 500 milliliters with each meal every day can really help in terms of weight loss, but also fat burning. And that's the thing we're really keen for you to be able to do. So really think about it. So thinking about supporting your metabolism is really important to think, okay, don't undereat, really important. Please don't undereat. It's really important not to undereat. Again, it's that whole consistency. It's so important to just find your rhythm. Maybe challenge yourself to find a new rhythm if the rhythm that you've got working isn't working for you. Really challenge yourself to make those changes. And yeah, so we're going to bring our last poll up. And Sam, you're going to close with the key messages from today. And yeah,
Yeah. So really, we want to take we want you to take home these key messages and look at the bigger picture. Your metabolism can be changed. It is not fixed. It adapts and responds to many different factors, okay, including your movement, your muscle mass, nutrition, sleep, stress, and lifestyle habits. And one of the most important things to remember is that muscle really does matter, and protecting muscle during weight loss really helps to support your metabolism, your strength, your energy levels, and the maintenance of that of your weight long term, of your new healthier weight. That's why we're stressing regular movement. So that neat movement, which is just moving about generally day to day, housework, walking, getting up from your desk, and resistance exercises are sort of things that you can consciously add. So whether that is investing in a resistant weighted vest, whether that is putting a couple of soup cans in a backpack and putting that on both shoulders as you go for a walk, or you know thinking of ways that at home you can use body weight. You don't need to have an extra weight. You could do squats or push-ups against a wall at home. There's lots of YouTube videos and little exercise things that you can do. Or also we could share our exercise videos, which also have different options for different levels of ability. If we share the link to the exercise videos, that would be great. Um, Remembering this is not a competition, we're taking everything step by step. You don't need to do everything perfectly for it to make a difference. It's really about consistent habits that add up over time and things becoming habitual. That is, so we don't even need to think about them. We always get off at the stop before, and we always have that longer walk, or we always park at the back of the car park so that we have a bit more of a walk. It's just what we naturally do. These small changes can have a powerful impact going forwards and affect your metabolism over time. Okay, it's really important to move away from extremes or quick fixes, because the goal isn't simply to lose weight. This is a health journey. The goal is to support your body, to protect your health and build those habits that feel sustainable, manageable, doable, maybe even enjoyable, dare I say. It's really that progress matters more than perfection.
very much. We're just going to quickly let you know what we've got coming up over the next few weeks. And thank you so much for taking part in the poll. Just to remind you, they're completely anonymous. We can't see who is answering what. It just gives us a sense of perspective as to what you might be thinking about doing differently over the next week or so as a result of being here today. So I can see your most popular answer so far is moving your body more regularly, even in small ways. Love that. That is one of our key take home messages. So, really thrilled. And we'll be asking you next week how you got on. Lots of other questions. Apart from that, people are going to be focusing on protein, building or protecting muscle through resistance. Really great to hear. And improving habits one step at a time. That's perfect. If you can manage to do that and keep that in your forefront of your head as the thing that you're working on, maybe write a little note to yourself. So easy to forget when we're tired or stressed, isn't it? So adapted exercises for wheelchairs, I think you will find we have some links for that. So, Raman, could you please also share those links? And we're going to stop sharing the slides and we're going to come to questions. Now, don't forget we're using the upvoting process on your questions. I know that can be frustrating for some if we don't get to yours, but it's very important. So, top question today is how do I increase loss of belly fat? That's such a commonly asked question, isn't it, Sam? So, my understanding is it's all about managing insulin sensitivity. So, really building those habits around how you eat, managing your stress, because that's also really important for insulin sensitivity, managing your sleep, and more managing stress hormone cortisol. I think those are the key things, Sam, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, generally, so when we think about fat around the tummy, the biggest concern that I have is the visceral fat, so fat around the organs of the abdomen. Okay, so that's what we really want to be working on, and that is generally a result of inflammation, which can be caused by so many things. Again, it's a holistic picture. So we look at our foods. So we want to be having a nice whole food diet, so we're not having as few inflammatory components to our diet as possible. So things that can increase inflammation in the body, things like a lot of sugar, a lot of sort of high glycemic index foods. Um, what else would you say, Ruth? Why has my mind gone blank? Things like if we're drinking a lot of alcohol, that can also have an impact on those sorts of things.
Yeah,
It's following the core meal plan, really focusing on protein, fiber, those whole foods, those vegetables, hydrating really well, but thinking about stress in our lives as well, and thinking about, okay, what strategies do I have in place that manages stress? Because belly fat is can be really frustrating, have been there for a long time, but we have to think about it in a holistic sense because stress is a big factor in creating inflammation in our bodies when we're thinking about a lot of things, we're getting anxious over things or we're fearful of a particular outcome. What do we have in place that gives us that can help us to relax, help us to just whether it's breathing exercises, whether it is having, a bath, or whether it is talking to a friend, having a laugh, something that eases our minds. That's really important to think about. Sleeping well, making sure that we have enough time to recover after a busy day, that our body is able to just relax and sleep well overnight. So it's a great question. Um, a multi-factored answer.
yeah, exactly. Really well liked question is how do you eat enough protein when your appetite is suppressed? I eat 3 eggs a day, often chicken for dinner, but it's still only around half of what you would perhaps be recommended to eat. That's a great question, and I know lots of people will really struggle with that. I would start out by putting that protein on your plate first, maybe building snacks around protein as well. And if you're struggling to eat, it might be that you need to break your food down into smaller portions. Whilst we very much recommend for sort of your digestive health to work optimally, which really supports weight management, if you're really struggling and think about maybe also adding in there are some clean protein powders that might supplement what you're eating in a more easy to manage way because it can be really hard, can't it? So,
Mm. I would
um,
also think if your appetite is suppressed to make sure your appetite's not suppressed too much.
yeah,
If you are becoming nutritionally deplete because your appetite is suppressed too much, then speak to whoever is prescribing to you. It might be that dropping a dose will be helpful because we don't want your body to be in. If your body thinks it is starving because it doesn't know that you're taking a weight loss medication, it will slow your metabolism for you because it thinks that there's some natural disaster has happened and there's not enough food around. So you don't want your body to go into starvation mode because it will just hold on to every, um, you know, calorie that you take in. So you don't want to over suppress your appetite so that the goal is to carry on eating well, to have at least 2 good meals a day and hydrate well, but you don't want to be so suppressed that you're not eating because the body will um, think that it is an emergency situation and try to conserve everything. So, um, really keep an eye on that because you should be able to manage your protein intake over the day.
very much. Great, that's really helpful. A really good question. So thank you, and see how you go. Let us know how you get on. Hopefully that's some help. Somebody says suggests they're thinking about taking a creatine supplement to aid muscle regrowth. Now, my understanding about creatine is that it actually helps to support fat loss and can be really helpful in terms of supporting a healthy body composition alongside all of the weight loss strategies, but it only works if you're doing resistance exercise. So really and truly, you need to be thinking, okay, I'm not going to spend my money unless I'm going to do that resistance because it is just something that's not going to work, have the same effects. Would you agree with that, Sam?
Yeah, there's some more. There's quite creatine's had a lot of research done on it, and I think there's also some benefits to cognitive health as well. So
Yeah,
sort of brain fog and things like that. So, but yeah, resistance training is really important alongside.
yeah. I mean, maybe worth trying it. Certainly not, unless just check, with all added supplements that aren't food based, you really just want to make sure that it's safe to take alongside any medication that you're taking.
Yeah, it's difficult for us to give blanket advice in this
Yeah.
huge forum. So please do think about your individual circumstances. And if there's other medications, health conditions going on, please do consult your healthcare provider before you start any supplements.
Question: how does metabolism affect, how does menopause affect metabolism? We have a whole webinar that we run. So Raman, if you could put the replay about weight loss in menopause, that would be really helpful. But we know that one of the things that happens during menopause is that your body fat will naturally increase, your insulin sensitivity will naturally decrease. So we really need to be thinking about what we're eating, how we're eating, and all of the factors we've talked about today. But there's a whole webinar that you can re-listen to. Anything you'd like to quickly add to that, Sam?
Um, yeah, the advice, really is very similar, but I know it can be very frustrating around the time of menopause because the things that used to work don't do the same things anymore, but because body composition does change. But there's so much to go through in menopause that we have a whole webinar. So please do watch the replay. I think you can probably watch it on like double speed if you are short of time just to get the key points, but there's a
We
lot
will
to
run
go
that
through.
again later in the year.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
absolutely. Somebody's saying they've got a set of scales. Well done. That claims to tell them their bone mass, their basal metabolic rate, and their body fat. And you're a little bit skeptical. Are they worth paying attention to?
I think they're quite. I have one too, and it wasn't a very expensive one. I think you can get very fancy ones, which generally like gyms or maybe even some GPs have and can tell you a bit more information, a bit more accurate information about body composition. Um, I think if you're using the same one every time, I think you'll get an idea of where you might be on various scales that they give you. Um, and you could look for trends. So too I wouldn't stick to it too religiously, but they're quite good for looking at trends over time. So that's what I would say they're useful for. Your BMR you can calculate with just numbers on a website. So that's just sort of based on your level of activity and your um, uh, height and weight. So you could go on, I think it's the British Heart Foundation website. Raman, you might be able to share that link too, where we can all calculate our basal metabolic rate there. And I would look at trends if you have a set of scales that are, relatively inexpensive at home. I know the ones at my gym, I think the chap said they're worth thousands or he paid thousands for them. So maybe they're a bit fancier and will do more things. And I would, trust those details a bit more than my one at home. But yeah, I'm looking for trends. Even with that, I'm looking for a trend. I'm not going to stick to anything religiously.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And I'd also say with your scales and weighing yourself, you're again looking for trends. I think we all dine out and get excited by a pound on, a pound off. And if we remember that little graph that showed that weight loss isn't linear, I think our weight is affected on a daily basis by stress, sleep, how, well hydrated we are, any inflammation that's going on in our body. So it's really easy to be tripped up by those trends as well. So just try and take a view over a few weeks rather than an immediate view. I think trends is really important.
Yeah, there's just a question about recommending a brand. I wouldn't recommend a particular. I wouldn't particularly
Yeah.
recommend the ones I have. They're
Yeah, I've
literally.
got
I
some
am just
as
looking
well.
at a trend. That's all. Um,
I'm
Yeah,
sure they have
I would
them on the boots.
they probably have them at Boots. Have a little look and maybe talk to the in-store staff about them. But yeah, there's not a. I think unless you're going to be spending crazy amounts of money on them if you're owning a gym, then I think probably the at-home ones are all much of a muchness, in my opinion.
Much. Somebody is waiting a knee replacement and is really worried about healthy bones. Really understand your concern and sorry you're in that situation. I would say really get your head around food that can really support healthy bones and also anti-inflammatory approach to eating. So, Raman, if you could share the Mediterranean style of eating link, that would be really helpful. That would be something I'd really want to signpost you to. And then making sure you've got all of those key micronutrients on board. So calcium, we know everybody knows calcium is important, but alongside calcium, you need that magnesium, boron, vitamin D. Go away, have a look at, see where the food sources are. We don't have that to hand. We probably don't have time to go searching for documentation to share with you. But those are the things you want to be thinking about. And obviously, I would suspect you're going to be in quite a lot of discomfort and pain if you're waiting for a knee replacement. So, really focus on those upper body exercises for now. And anything you can do from sort of your waist up would be great. Or even, whether you can do anything with your feet as well, because without aggravating your knees. So, yeah,
Yeah.
anything
And
else?
then you've got your physio once you finish, like really focusing on the rehab as you start with your new knee to start, rehabbing the muscles and things and getting strong again, which will happen. So best of luck with that.
Question, at what approximate age do hormones, I guess this is focused for women, drastically affect your weight where movement, exercise, and diet takes much longer to achieve the desired weight loss results? That's a really interesting question, isn't it, Sam? Because I'm sort of thinking you've got to throw into that mix your weight loss history and whether you've had this process of losing weight and regaining it and maybe making your body a little bit more orientated around a higher fat mass. So that is something I would put in for everyone, irrespective of your age. And then if you're talking perimenopause, menopause, we know the average age is around 45 for most women, and that perimenopause phase can last for 10 years, I believe, perimenopause, menopause. So, it's a long time. Have a look at your family health history in terms of menopause, perimenopause, because there's often a correlation between what's happened in your female relatives as well. Sam.
Yeah, it would also depend, how active have you been up to this point? Like it's if you're starting from scratch, and you were very fit maybe in your 20s and then things changed, had kids and everything changed and blah blah blah. We've all got reasons why we may not be as active as we used to be. But if it's been a while, it's going to take a while to sort of rebuild those habits and that muscle. It'll still be there'll be some muscle memory there, but it's going to take a little while as well as with hormonal changes. It's going to take a little while to get back into the shape that you were in previously and to see the changes. But it is a step by step, it will come back. It's just we can only go as fast as we can go. And it's an individual journey. So just stay in your lane, keep going, keep building those habits so that it becomes second nature and that and the muscle building will follow.
Very much. Um, Interesting question here. Collagen, cider vinegar, vitamin supplements, are these helpful or advertising hype? Um,
Helpful for what? This is a huge question, and it's a good question, but it is massive, and it will probably take us days to reply to answer. But Ruth, I'll let you. This is your thing.
Well, you've got good views on these too. I would say I've been looking at collagen and doing some research around that. So my thinking is shifting towards thinking, yes, it has a help in terms of skin elasticity. So for people who have larger amounts of weight loss, that may be something worth considering. But, again, it's not the whole story. We can build our collagen from the food that we eat. We get collagen from amino acids, which comes from proteins. So variety in protein. I am building some information that we will be able to share in time. It just has to go through a whole load of processes before we can get it out there in the general public. Cider vinegar, we have looked at the research around cider vinegar. There is very little. There is a small amount of research, I should say, that suggests it can help to support insulin sensitivity to a degree. So it may be worth considering adding in vitamin supplements. Yes, we generally recommend that people who are taking a weight loss medication consider taking a multivitamin. And the research suggests that people who enter the arena of wanting to take a weight loss medication may be a little bit lower in some of the common micronutrients that can be helpful for weight management. So, yeah, I would say I am a strong advocate that a very gentle multivitamin, you don't have to spend pounds and pounds, would be the place to start. But yeah, I think we'll leave it
Yeah.
there and move on.
Yeah, there's lots that could be said, but it's a
Yeah.
great question, just a huge answer. Next question about hormone tests to see what could be affecting your weight loss efforts, especially when your diet and exercise is balanced. It's frustrating when you seem to be doing everything right and it takes months to see even a couple of pounds lost. Right. So you could ask your GP for hormonal tests. This is an anonymous question, so I don't know if you're male or female, especially if you're around menopause, whether you want to have those tested is something you could talk to your GP about. Um, but also bear in mind the graph. So the graph about weight loss is not a straight line. There will be periods of time where where you'll hit what we call a weight loss plateau, and we talk about what is known as set point theory. And so, like I mentioned before, your body wants to stay in homeostasis. So it doesn't really want big changes. It likes everything to be at a consistent level. So that includes our weight. So your body is for example, you've sort of happily been along the 100 kilo mark for a while, and then you start a weight loss journey, you drop down to say 90 kilos over a period of time. And your body, if that has happened very quickly, or even if that has happened, your body is going to need a bit of time. I'm just picking arbitrary numbers here, guys. So just bear with me. Um, so your body's going to just take a little bit of time to recognize 90 as the new normal. Okay, so that's why it can feel really frustrating that you're stuck, you're doing all the right things, and yet the scales aren't blimming changing. But look at those other soft signs that I mentioned before. So maybe there's less pain in your knees, maybe you're sleeping better, maybe your mood is better, maybe your waist is a bit smaller, or the circumference of your arms, your thighs might be changing for the better, but the numbers aren't changing on the scale. Look for those soft signs because the this is set point theory. This is sometimes we hit a plateau and it can be incredibly frustrating because we don't know how long a plateau lasts. It's different for everybody. It might be a few weeks, it might be a few months, and we're doing all the same things. If you feel, for example, if you're on a weight loss medication and your appetite's creeping back in, the food noise is coming back, and you're at a dose that could be increased, speak to your provider about perhaps increasing the dose if you wish to do that. If everything is working just the same, it's more likely to be this plateau stage that you're in. Um, so look at it as an opportunity to maintain all the habits that you're developing, all of those things that, the whole food diets, or really looking at that core meal plan or the GLP-1 eating plan, your hydration, your sleep, your stress, your movement, thinking of all those things to consolidate during a plateau phase, because as frustrating as it may be, there will be internal changes that are happening. Okay. And it will start picking up again. It's just we all go through them. It's a period of time that we just have to keep plowing through and just keep building our habits. So I know it's frustrating. I'm sorry about that. But hormone wise, I would speak to your GP about that. It can be a good idea to know where you are in terms of, I'm assuming you're menopausal, but just knowing where you are.
Yeah, but also thinking thyroid hormones and things like that too. So
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
worth looking at the whole story as much as you can. And also don't forget the head game as well, because I think, the emotional aspect of being stuck in a plateau or gaining weight, losing weight, every pound going back on, coming off, it's a real head game. It can really trip you up. So really, try and look for all the things Sam was talking about earlier. Look at the other gains that you're getting, your energy, your ability to move more easily, perhaps your enjoyment of life because you're wearing the clothes that you feel good in. All of those things become really important for us to find that focus because I think if we put all of that attention through the scales, it becomes really difficult to stay uplifted and upbeat. So I think we've got to keep it broad as much as we can.
Yeah. And be really kind to yourself. I
Yeah,
know when it's frustrating, it's hard, but yeah, being kind to yourself on this journey is really key,
yeah,
because there will be times of challenge, as I think
yeah,
we all know.
definitely. Somebody's asking a really great question here about getting to the higher stage of a weight loss medication, whether it was Manjaro or Wegovy, and then seeming to become slightly immune to the effects of that medication and finding that that food noise is creeping back in. Is there anything they can do to help offset that?
Okay. Okay, you get to the highest, so you're already at the highest dose. Okay, and I've seen quite a lot of people
Yeah.
noticing this. It doesn't happen to everybody, but for some people, they feel like the effect kind of wears off. Okay, so we have to be quite strategic here. So I think it is really about your body makes its own GLP-1. So how do we encourage that? How do we build our plate? How do we move our bodies, build our plates, and also remember that you don't have to be on injections to lose weight. Okay, that we've been losing weight for millennia. It doesn't have to be assisted with medication. All right, but I realize that we have these medications, and for some people, they're a real godsend. But we have to really know what we're doing alongside because it's the lifestyle changes, the behavioral changes that will sustain weight loss in the long run. Okay, so we need to build our plates in the right way, making sure that we're focusing on that protein and fiber and hydration, some healthy fats, um, and being consistent with the changes that we make. We're not being perfect. We're just really going for consistency here and making sure that we if we build our plates in that way, we really start to manage our blood sugars really well so we won't have these big swings in blood pressure. So we won't have that physiologically triggered cravings, those cravings for sugars, for that getting really hangry and irritable and, searching around for a snack at 11 o'clock because perhaps we had something that was quite high carbohydrate in the, first thing in the morning. So we're really looking at we're really breaking everything down to the basics. Ruth, is there anything more that you would say about maintaining when the
Yeah,
medication starts to perhaps not work as well as it used to?
I think it is all of the things you've talked about. And I think the research is beginning to pick up that for some people, this is something that happens. And obviously, in that situation, it can be really upsetting and irritating. But I think food noise is something that happens in our head. So, although it may be being controlled by perhaps less sensitivity to ghrelin, our hunger hormone, and leptin, our satiety hormones, we then maybe need to, and I think this is true for people entering into that maintenance phase, there is a need, I think, for us to pre-plan the meals we're going to have, to really plan what we're going to eat the next day or the day after or the following week or the next 2 or 3 days, and actually stick to the plan, and actually talk yourself out of giving into the food noise because food noise is there to distract you, it's there to trip you up, it's there to get you back to where you were in terms of your previous body weight. And we know that's a really, really complicated time in any weight loss journey, whether you're halfway through, three-quarters of the way through, or right at the end where you want to maintain. This is something that we know happens. So I think I'm really up for people almost thinking about some very gentle rules around food because you almost need to set yourself up to succeed. And it's really hard. If you listen to those messages, if you listen to the voice, if you listen to the food noise, the real likelihood is fact is you are going to start gaining weight. And we know that can happen even when you're taking medications. So we want that not to be your story. I know that sounds tough, but I really think we have to tough it out. And eventually, a bit like Sam was saying, you will start producing your own GLP-1s from the right food, and you will very much start, taking control back. Your body will get used to your new set point. It will start calming down. We almost need to train our body, our heads, and ourselves around that. It's tough, really tough. We know this.
Yeah. And also distraction, the power of distraction. We're looking when we get that food noise, our brain is looking for a dopamine hit. What else gives us a dopamine hit? What else do we really enjoy? Is it there's all sorts of
Yeah.
things that you might really enjoy. Maybe it's phoning a friend and having a giggle. Maybe it is putting your favorite music on. Maybe it's doing a puzzle. Maybe it's reading a book. Whatever it is that that gives you that kind of sense of reward, think about that and have some in your back pocket that, like, you know what, when this kicks in, I know if I put on my favorite track and if I move my body or if I sing along at the top of my lungs, I know that that lifts my spirits and that gives me a dopamine buzz. So, and it will get easier. Yeah. Um, right. Next question.
Final question now. Do you want to have a quick whiz through and see if there's anything you want to pick up? There's somebody who's asking about long COVID with a dodgy knee, lots of reasons why this is a really difficult journey. So sorry to hear that that's wondering if there's anything that they could be doing. I mean, one of the people I was talking to, a friend of mine who is on a weight loss journey and has a really dodgy hip and can't do any exercises, she's now using the toning tables in her local gym. And that's a very passive form of exercise and it's managed by someone there. And I think in some situations, something like that may be helpful to consider, or even just some gentle movement in water. But be really gentle because when you're in water, you think you can do more than you can. So maybe even just some exercise, but maybe, and what's the special water classes that you can go to? Some that aren't exercise, hydrotherapy or something might be worth considering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few questions. I do not think that Boots yet offers a body composition service. There's someone who wants to increase their dose. So basically, at Boots, we tell people to stay on the lowest effective dose as. So if you're on a dose of weight loss medication that works for you, there's no need to increase the dose for no reason, basically. If it's working well, you're losing weight at that gradual rate of 1 to 2 pounds per week on average. There's no need to increase. Um, if you have questions about your doses and things, please do ask your provider because it's difficult for us to advise here without knowing your history or what you're on, just to avoid disappointment here.
Really
Uh,
in the chat box that people aren't um, answering. Sorry, we've missed somebody's question. They're obviously very annoyed. So sorry about that. We try very hard to answer as many questions as we can, and we know that that can be
yeah,
really
that
frustrating.
there are, just to put it in context, there's 300 people here and there's a lot of questions. So just to put it into context,
But I
um,
also think we are now looking back through all of the questions we haven't answered, and if there's anything that is generic that is safe to answer in future webinars, we will bring those questions
yeah,
into the
yeah, and
webinars.
thank you for asking your questions. It is. It's good to know that people really want to be informed. So one gram per kilogram of body weight protein is a good place to start. If you're doing a lot of resistance exercise, you can increase that. You could go to 1.2 up to 1.5 even. If you're doing a lot of weight training. We don't we someone was asking about whether they should go to keto or fasting or what have you. We tend not to advise those things for weight loss. There's not an awful lot of evidence for this person is in menopause and strength training and walking and boxing, fantastic, doing ton of exercise and mobility. So that's great. I would still be looking at the core meal plan, how to build your plate, as you might be in a plateau phase if you are on a weight loss journey. I assume you're on a weight loss journey, but just go with it. It sounds like you're doing loads. And also remembering if you're doing that much exercise, you're probably building a lot of muscle, and muscle is actually more heavy than fat. So, once you get to kind of that level of you're doing a lot of exercise and a lot of strength training, kind of BMI and weight isn't going to be as useful because you probably have a lot of muscle tissue that you're building and that you're making sure that you have enough protein in your diet is really important if you're doing this much training.
Quick, a quick comment. A few people are asking about dosing, when to increase, still experiencing food noise on lower doses. If you're a Bits Online Doctor customer, please write in. We'll give you some advice. We can talk to
Yeah,
you on the
specific to you.
service. Please, please.
Yeah.
Someone's asking for the graph. We'll be sharing the recording, so you'll be able to see the graph in the recording. So please have a look there. And yes, somebody's asking about a hysterectomy, if it affects your metabolism. Unfortunately, yes, from what I've read, it does, and it'll be an overnight shift. So do have a look at the webinar all about menopause. It's really got some helpful information around that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us again today. We're back next week. We're talking all about protein because we're asked about this a lot. We will be here on Tuesday because it's a bank holiday on Monday, so we switch to the Tuesday.
Great. And
Fitness.
we've got the feedback questionnaires up there already. The link to sign up for more webinars is there too. You've been fantastic. Your questions have been great. I'm sorry we haven't got to all of them. It's just a bit bananas, as you can imagine. We will have a full questions only session at some point, won't
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
Ruth? We'll
Yeah,
we'll schedule one of those. But
figure out when that's coming up.
keep an eye out for it because I know we all want to know what we want to know. But do make use of the Boots Online Doctor service where we will answer your questions and they'll be more specific to you because we can see your full history and know a bit more about you. So, um,
Very
yes.
much so. Thank you so
Thanks,
much, everyone,
everybody.
and thanks, Sam. Thanks to Raman as
Thanks, Ruth.
well.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
Raman.
Take care. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Have a good week.